Hi, people. Welcome to the Kenrald Experience. Now, this COVID 19 lockdown has gotten me thinking a lot about the intellectual status of the world today. And I think this prolonging of the lockdown into these endless phases that are hurting us more than the virus they are meant to curb is enlightening in itself. And I thought maybe we would talk about that. What is the situation of an average African today? You were hardworking, you had a job, a bad job at it, because there's really no good job in Africa. Africa is a colonized country with a lot of impoverishment because of some of the circumstances that I've discussed in the previous videos. Everything is rigged against Africa. Our consumption is highly dependent on exports. I mean, on imports, because all capitalistic investments are pumped into creating raw materials or primary produce so that you can export them to the Western world. And in return, the Western world sends us um, fiat goods, finished goods, processed, produced goods, secondary products, and things like that, things that you can actually consume. The situation that I tell you of Africa producing what we don't consume and consuming what we don't produce. And in that way, Africa is very much dependent on Europe. Now, what is the COVID lockdown creating? The COVID lockdown is creating scarcity, not only in Africa, where artificial scarcity has already been present since we're in the situation where we don't produce what we consume already, but now even the Europe and the Western world that we're depending on is not producing. So, which means that the more time we spend in this prolonged lockdown, the more the market is running out of food. So the scarcity is no longer going to be artificial like it has been in Africa. It's going to be real. There's going to actually be nothing. So the monster that we are facing in this lockdown in Africa is we have run out of money. But even the few who still have money, the markets are running out of food. The supermarkets are now selling expired food. They've run out of food. There are no new supplies because nobody is producing. The markets have also the organic, fresh foods ripening. The bananas are ripening, the fruits are ripening and rotting, and the markets are slowly also running out of food. The transporters of food from the villages across borders, the exports, we have found out now, for example, in East Africa, of the last 3 weeks, the new cases of COVID that have been discovered have been in these truck drivers, regional truck drivers. They are the only new people that now are bringing in infections because the lockdown helped to prevent the numbers a bit. And because of that, governments are debating on whether to allow these truck drivers to keep bringing exports or not. And we all agree that, we can't stop this from happening because it's suicide, because we are dependent on those exports. Should those exports stop coming in, East Africa will not have food at all because we have not been producing what we consume already. Capitalism and colonialism have already put us in this precarious state where we don't produce what we consume. Our food is exported. These are the things I've been trying to expose. That Africa has been mind controlled into the foolishness of not producing food. And today, the little food you see in the local markets is actually coming from those little few farmers where urbanization hasn't reached in the villages, that remained in that subsistent lifestyle, and so are able to sell us a little bit more because they harvest more than they can consume, and they sell the extra. That little extra they sell off is what we are depending on. Is the only food now left in the markets, because everybody in the city has no farm. They already gave up on that and sold their land, or their land was somehow taken up by the capitalists. And so you were all dependent on the government. We were all dependent on the government. And the government answer was aid, was export. I mean, totally dependent life. But now we're entering a very critical state of this lockdown, where the markets are now running out of food. The exports, first of all, the drivers are the ones bringing in the COVID. And second of all, the trucks have also reduced because the exports have reduced. I've told you that even where the food comes from, the exporters, the ones that we import from, are also not producing because they are also in this lockdown. And so there is a general relative scarcity. Now, any economist knows about the Gini coefficient, the gap between those who have and those who don't in relationship to poverty. Now, you all know that when everyone is poor, violence can't arise because everyone is poor. There's nothing for you to get if from anybody else. The problem comes when a few have and others don't have, because people's children are not going to starve to death while other people have food. People's families are not going to starve to death while they watch other people having food just because they don't have money. They're going to go out there and get this food. Now, in psychology, the Jungian psychology, simple psychology, we know that when a teenager leaves his parents or her parents and goes out to the world, should they find difficulty in the world, when they return back home, it's pathological for them to start acting like kids. Because what they really are is they are a failed adult. The lockdown, for all rights and intentions, was meant to give all the governments of the world a chance to build up hospital capacities, to equip the hospitals, to train doctors for the situation, because the monster was coming. COVID was coming, whether you like it or not. There is no way to keep COVID away from anyone. Never in life do you contend with chaos by hiding. I've told you in previous Kenrald Experience videos that you don't contend with evil by seeking safety. God didn't create us to be safe. He created us to be strong. You have to learn to face the evil. That's why when you're young and you're growing up, your parents teach you to face your fears. The lockdown is a pathological cowardice move if its intention wasn't to back up the hospital capacity. And now it's becoming suicide. It's becoming social suicide. The society is collapsing with every single second we remain in this damn lockdown. And this lockdown is a good picture of how shallow-minded the people we have put in power are. And I don't like to do these things because I feel like, before you judge, you need to think about your own weaknesses. But I think we are really a dumb generation of humanity. Never in history, even in ancient Africa, where we come from, where the whole world has despised, have we fought Gemo? Because Gemo was the evil spirit that brought epidemics. Never in history has Africa fought Gemo by hiding in houses. The social distancing is very African. We did that because we said, let's let Gemo, the evil spirit, choose out the people that, sinned against her. Let her take them away. Which you can say, yeah, that was a form of natural selection and can't work anymore. We are now a more modern people. Okay, but do modern people hide in their houses? Is that really the wise thing to do? It's coming anyway. The truck drivers are now the ones bringing in. The exports are goddamn contaminated with this virus. We are going to hide in our houses and die. Now starvation is killing more people in Africa than the goddamn virus. And you still hold us in lockdown. Like, if the politicians want to hide in your houses. But for us to be beaten, to be imprisoned, to be tortured, to be arrested, and all these authoritarian things you're doing on the streets when we go out to look for food for our families is preposterous. Is when we surrendered to allow the hospitals to build capacity, we didn't give away our civil liberties. We are still human beings, and power still belongs to the people. Now you're breaking our trust by demonizing us, by arresting us, by killing us on the streets because we are trying to fend for our families. Your dumbness for failing to realize that the lockdown doesn't stop COVID from entering our homes shouldn't affect all of us, because not all of us think like you few. This concentration of a few powerful people that are dumb is what's putting us into this precarious state. Now people are dying. People don't have food. And yet the infections are still going up. But then you're setting us up for chaos. You're setting us up for a time bomb. People are going to turn against people, and then you'll use the army to shoot, and then it will just turn into chaos and war. Brothers killing brothers, but for genuine reasons, because no one wants to attack anyone. No one wants to rob anyone. But what are you going to do when your children are dying? When you're dying? When your family is dying? Every day our bosses are calling us, we are losing jobs. Companies are closing down, so we are losing jobs. Now imagine we don't have food. You've made us spend all our money in this damn lockdown. We have contributed to your solidarity fund to kind of help the hospitals. This money, you've not even given it out to the people. Instead, we hope you've not corrupted this money, because you'll be accountable for this. You've borrowed loans from the European Union. You've borrowed money from the IMF. And you've not even bought food. All the money you're keeping it in classified funds while we continue to die. And then when you watch TV, they're talking about, oh, we're improving the city, we're improving the city. You're improving the city, we have no food. No one cares about cities right now. We want to eat. We want our children to eat. I'm sorry for getting emotional, but what I want to say is that you don't contend with chaos. You don't contend with evil by hiding. Because God didn't create us safe. He created us strong. We come from a strong culture of strong people. We come from a strong spirit. The African spirit is a very strong spirit and is a resurrecting spirit, which means that we go out there knowing that even if the whole world died, some people would resurrect. Now I know most of these African leaders are actually puppets. But aren't you the ones, the Western people that claim to be more Christian than anybody else? Aren't you the ones that even introduced the whole Christianity and killed the African resurrection spirit? Now, if you're really Christians and you believe in Jesus Christ and the resurrection, then you need to advise your prefects in Africa to call this stupid lockdown off. The lockdown has to end now. Thank you, guys. I hope these leaders can do the right thing, can do the wise thing. See you on the next vlog.